Top 10 strongest lore classes in WoW. Well, it's a good thing he put a Death Knight on here because I would have been pretty upset if he didn't. Update it for Dragonflight. Let's see what the top 10 strongest lore classes are. Obviously, my boys, the Death Knight's got to be number one.
It is undeniable that some classes are just stronger than others in the lore. There is really no two ways about it. While the strongest warrior could definitely defeat a warlock, on average, a warrior wouldn't stand a chance against most spellcasters, let alone the superhuman
how do warriors in the
demon
chat
hunter.
feel about that?
Many
Damn.
years ago, I made this exact same list, but a few expansions later, not only were new classes added to the game, but we learned so much more about each of these classes and what they can really do. Some have moved up the list, some can move down the list. For example, Fel magic isn't the superpower that we thought it was back all the way in Legion, and the light isn't as tame as we once thought.
It's fallible.
Making light casters potentially as destructive as the Fel and the Void users. So let's put down the list updated to the current lore on what really are the strongest of all the playable WoW classes.
At this point, it is practically impossible that you haven't heard about Raid Shadow Legends, and
yes.
this is just a generic.
Yes, we got a Raid Shadow Legends
But
ad.
let me cover a few misconceptions and why this couldn't be further from the truth
Yesterday,
and
someone in
why
chat
you
was
should
disappointed
start
when we didn't get
playing
one.
today. The biggest misconception is that there is no depth to it, and this couldn't be further from the truth. Over 800 heroes, PvP, PvE, clan versus clan, and so much endgame content. I mean, for example, the Cursed City.
Never
the
heard of this
biggest
game before. It's
feature
crazy.
added in
Wow.
2023 since the Doom
Looks
Tower,
good.
with
Interesting.
100 stages to complete, including stages where you need to take down 2 raid bosses at the
It's
same
tricky,
time,
boys.
with a ton of quests, and you can even get a mythical champion. Another misconception, of course,
God,
is
I
that
can't
it's
wait.
pay to win, and it is a huge time sink.
I can't wait until my stream is big enough or my YouTube channel is big enough that I can peddle Raid Shadow Legends on you guys. Just know that if you see a Raid Shadow Legends channel ad on my channel, I've made it, boys. I've made it. And you better download it so I get some commission off that shit.
If you haven't started playing it now, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code and you will get an insane bonus.
You would never advertise if you were a YouTuber? I haven't yet, but to be honest, I haven't turned anyone down either. Well, I did turn down one guy, but I didn't know what it was.
After reaching level 15,
That's why.
Boss Killer and an attack type warrior. You can find me under the name Doran's Movies, and you can also join my clan, so you can join me in the game. So see you on the battlefield.
There it is. Download it.
Shaman. Shamans are not particularly a battle class, at least not fully as, for example, the Demon Hunters, but instead, they're more akin to priests, cultural figures whose influence goes beyond just simply fighting. Shamans are essentially mediators between the elements, and through them, they're able to utilize a wide range of unique abilities. They can cast lightning, they can cause earthquakes, they can divide
They are the
ground.
only. Oh my god. We gotta fly, we got a freaking ad.
They can heal.
They
and
are
do
the
all
only,
sorts of
believe it or not, they are the only class in the game that can control the elements. Yeah, I'm putting that out there. You could be Sam, you could be like, what? Wait. Frost mages, fire mages. What are you talking about, Sam? If you don't know the lore behind that, they're not actually controlling the elements. Frost and fire mages are still using arcane. They are simply using arcane to control the elements. They are not actually bending the elements to their will. They're using arcane to bend the elements. If you didn't know, now you know.
things. However, so much of their power depends on their influence with the elementals, and this varies not just from zone to zone, but from world to world. The elements are not the same. For example, on Azeroth and Draenor, while some shamans like Thrall are beyond crazy powerful, the main reason they're so far on this list is because the elementals are really not all that powerful, at least not when compared to the grand scheme of things. I mean, sure, they can definitely cause a lot of damage, there is no doubt about that, but when matched against the cosmological titans, figuratively and literally, they can't really do that much. I mean, the reason is because that is exactly what happened. I mean, the elemental dragons lost against the titan ones, the elemental lords were defeated by both the old gods and the titans, so despite powerful, really
damn, he's kind of right. The elements do be taking L's. Damn. What the hell? I mean, how many Fire Lords have we killed at this point? There isn't even one right now. Farak took the freaking fire from Smolderon after we kill him, and then he dies too. Shit. Huh, taking L's.
Even on the same scale. I mean, on the other hand, we do have Dark Shamans. They do exist. They can 100% be more powerful than a regular Shaman because they can force elements, but this is like a short-term strategy, as once they actually lose out the elements, they are left without any powers. Druid. If getting lost in a dangerous jungle was a class, that would be the druids. They can not only turn into dangerous beasts and
He's
attack
ranking
you, but they
druids
can
low.
also use nature against you, rooting, summoning crayons, casting moonfire. However, much like the shamans, the druids are not primarily an offensive class. Their entire purpose is as cultural figures and to maintain nature, but of course, as everyone is constantly threatening nature, they had to become very powerful in order to defend it. Ranking druids is really hard because, for example, characters like Malfurion in the books are practically mini-gods and some of the strongest beings that are not
Malfurion's a
cosmological
beast.
figures, yet he doesn't really do all that much in the actual game.
You guys remember in BFA when he took out like an entire horde escort, man? He just freaking ripped him apart, rooted a guy, and then choked out that troll and told him, go tell your friends. That was one of the most badass cutscenes we've seen in game, honestly. I still think that was the Malfurion I know and love, not this shit.
On the other hand, you have druids that have
But the man wants to get laid, so I get it.
easily. The thing is, though, a druid depends a whole lot on nature and where he is actually fighting. So, a druid fighting in the middle of Ashenvale is much more powerful than a druid fighting on the Broken Isles, where it is just scorched
that makes
earth
sense.
everywhere. There isn't a whole lot of nature you can actually mobilize. Because of that, their role makes sense. I mean, defenders of nature, but not exactly offensive figures. However, I do think one key thing is important here as we're discussing what classes use what cosmological force. How the warlocks use Fel or the Shadow Priests Void, the druids are beings of life. They wield the life force. Now, at the moment, this isn't all that clear. As I said, for example,
ENRS
elementals
stuff.
are crazy powerful when compared to the Void, but I think life is a whole nother level and the lore is really going to be changing soon. Life seems to be the force strongly connected to Azeroth, and as you may have noticed, no one has managed to defeat it yet, and depending on how the World Soul Saga unravels, the druids may be moving like 5 spots down this list if something changes. Priest.
You are right, DK Myth, about Malfurion. Malfurion is legit a raid boss in the books. He is a powerhouse who suffers from being too powerful to showcase. Yeah, that's why I always had to, that whole, the way the war went down, you remember the backstab or when he wasn't looking Sourfang through the axe or whatever? I don't know, man. I feel like Malfurion, I mean, I think Sylvanas personally would not have been able to hold up for even a second against Malfurion. That's, if you're talking about legit how powerful he is in the lore, he would have freaking ripped her apart. Tentacle hentai'd her with roots. That's what would have happened. But, they had to write it in a certain way, and yes, Sourfang, catches him off guard, that kind of shit. It was what it was.
This is a strange one, as priests are just so diverse in World of Warcraft. I mean, technically, a light priest is a similar class to the priest of Elune, and a witch doctor even falls into the priest category very loosely, so it is really hard to actually rank them. One of the main reasons I've decided to rank them here is due to priests of Elune that can be insanely powerful, and we had seen Tyrande and the Night Warrior do crazy damage, but that already kind of starts straying quite a bit far from the actual class. However, if we just focus on the light ones, we also got quite a bit to work with. Previously, I wouldn't have ranked them very high because priests were not really known as super powerful. I mean, there was a reason why humans decided to actually make paladins to do the fighting. However, so much has changed since the Orcish Wars and even now in Dragonflight. Recently, we started getting this really dark and offensive side of the light, summoning gigantic like elementals, and because of that,
we're gonna get a lot of light lore going forward. I can tell it's gonna be centered around Halifal and everything, and there's gonna be a ton of new lore that has to do with the light. We're gonna find out a lot about, I think, the Naru and everything else too.
Priests soon are going to have a potential to change to a completely different class. Not just the healing cultural figures, but actual offensive casters similar to Shadow ones, just wielding the light. However, even regular priests, depending on their power, can do a lot. For example, for a bit, Anduin was one, and he not only did Master Resurrection, but he resurrected multiple people personally, although that isn't exactly what an average priest does. Depending on how the World Soul Saga goes, I think the priests are going to have a lot of room to progress closer to the top 3 on this list.
Oh.
Evokers. Let's be real. Directed Evokers are not really what we had expected them to be.
No.
Deathwing's personal elite fighting force.
I still think it's so weird that they don't have like a straight up melee spec. I mean, how the Black Dragonflight, if you would have, that seems like a melee spec. And you see them here. Like, how are you an elite army and the best you can do is mid-range fighting? I don't know.
Would be completely badass. They
Missed the
turned
spot
out
on Drag
okay.
here
I
a
mean, they
little
don't really look all that scary, but lore-wise, they're actually a really powerful class. Much like the Demon Hunters, they were
too
created
skinny.
with a certain purpose that is now gone, but still, the abilities remain, and they're very useful. See,
Lay off the
back in the
scalies.
day, it was really hard for Titan dragons to fight elemental dragons because, you know, dragons fighting dragons equalizes itself as they're very similar. They know the strengths and weaknesses of each other. So the Dractyr were combined with the mortals in order to be a thorn in the side of gigantic dragons. They were created within Eberus directly by Deathwing, and we can personally see how twisted some of his experiments were. The Dractyr evokers are able to shift between humanoid and this mild draconic form, and they can wield the magic of 5 Dragonflights, being able to use some really destructive
Well, can they though? I mean, I feel like the Black Dragonflight shit they have really isn't Black Dragonflight-esque. It's all right, but I still feel like melee stuff, earthy melee stuff would have been good for the Black Dragonflight. But
The thing about them though is
Wasn't
that
meant
they
to be.
were a super soldier program that was frozen in time pretty much as soon as they were created, and we never really saw them do anything that notable until we had awoken them just now. Because of that,
Look
I
at this
would
guy.
rank them really
look at this guy in the background. Look at how buff he is. Why didn't we ever get a Dractyr that looks like this? This guy's freaking jacked, man. Look at that neck. Damn, he's a thick boy. But no, we got a bunch of skinny girls.
Them just now. Because of that, I wouldn't rank
Look at
them
the neck
really
here,
super
too.
high, even though technically they should be.
And then look at what's in the game. You know, look at, I don't know. I think maybe the neck has a lot to do with it, man. It's, I don't know. The art never showed up in the game.
Top 3 on this list. The thing is, Ravnica defeated them
We need
in
more
one
tanks.
battle, and
I'm down
since
for
then,
that.
I mean, they have essentially been hugging each other out this entire expansion, but I still believe they really are Deathwing super soldiers, and we will soon see how powerful they really are in the World Soul Saga. Paladins. Much like the priests, I would say it is really hard to rank them now due to so much happening with the light as a cosmological force.
I'll admit, as a Death Knight, I'm kind of, Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. What the fuck? Burning Vikings here. What's up, Burning Viking? How's it going, man? I was going to say, I'll admit, as opposite as I am to the light when it comes to playing the game, because I'm a Death Knight, I have to say, Paladins, I feel like, do have some cool lore. They do. I can appreciate their lore.
Light turning quite darker.
What's up?
would
Good morning,
make
Birdie
these
Viking.
guys really powerful. However, so much has changed since the Silverhand days and the first Paladin Order. We not only saw the Army of the Light, but also the Draenei Vindicars, Terralia, and a lot of other Paladins that are on a scale that is
I can
really
appreciate
out of
their
this
devotion
world.
to the
The
light.
thing about Paladins is that they're really well versed in melee combat, and then they're heavily empowered by the light on top of that, so they can not only enhance their abilities, they can heal, they can shield themselves, they can dodge spells, and they can even cast offensive spells. That puts them miles ahead of other regular melee casters and kind of puts them into the starter caster territory. However, as I said, Paladins are a really broad class right now, especially with the new tiers orders, so they even got some Titan Heritage, Army of the Light, Draenei, Human Orders, even Alternate Draenor, so it is...
Yeah, he's also not failing to mention that even Paladins amongst different races are different. Like a Blood Elf Paladin is like a Blood Paladin. They're kind of different. Right, and they get their light, I guess, from the Sunwell, which is a bit different than what a human paladin would do. And we've talked about other paladins coming to the game; it'd be the same thing. They all kind of get their light source from a different source. That's at least that's how it's written in their lore. So they are a bit divided, yeah.
Super hard to really pinpoint them to a single mold. Death Knights. The thing about Death Knights is that you can't really
Urel
kill
has
them.
gone
They are
nuts, yeah.
essentially dead. They don't feel pain, they don't need air, and a lot of them have inbuilt sadistic mechanism to hurt other beings. When compared to most classes, they are recent arrivals, but we have
Best
multiple
class in the game.
generations of them, from the pre-Lich King to the post-Lich King ones. Now, you may be thinking, there's no way an empowered undead warrior is so much stronger than so many of these other classes, but I think the spot on this list is beyond justified. See, the thing about Death Knights is they're
Listen to this.
essentially magic users, death magic wielders. They're much like paladins, they aren't full-on necromancers, but they're like mini necromancers. While a regular warrior wouldn't be able to stand a chance against a mage and a very powerful spell, Death Knights can cast shields to block spells. They can use magic to choke and incapacitate
right.
someone, and if they cast first, I mean, a lot of powerful spellcasters wouldn't even stand a chance. Furthermore, and this is a super important point, they are immune to a lot of magic.
Yes,
can't
sir.
really cause pain to them. You can't mind
Yeah,
control
get
them,
your
which
fucking fairy dust out of here. That shit don't affect us. We're too strong for that stuff. Not to mention, we never get tired. We are immune to any kind of, fatigue or anything like that. We can fight forever. And in fact, the more you fight us, the more we get stronger. I mean, we're basically the Saiyan race of WoW.
immediately
saying.
counters so many other magic users.
just saying,
Additionally, they are a lot more ruthless as they don't exactly have all that much to lose as they're dead anyway. So despite near a decade
Slow
passing
class.
since
Oh, yeah, we
the
are
last
wheelchair
video,
class, that's
Death Knights are still some of the strongest classes we currently have playable. Demon Hunter. It's been nearly a decade since they were added, and not much has really changed. They're still near the top of the list of the strongest classes we have available. I know you may be thinking, they're just a demon counter class. They aren't exactly a counter for other classes, but let's be real. If you can cut down a massively powerful pit lord, which barely any other class can alone.
My God, these fucking ads, they're ruthless. I'm gonna have to turn on ad blocker. I gotta just deal with it.
How much damage can you really do to a regular mortal? Sure, demon hunters have a ton of demon-specific abilities that are relatively useless right now, such as seeing demons through walls and tracking them, but they also have a ton
I will.
that are quite
I wasn't home. How does that work?
superpowers. The thing about demon hunters is, despite you seeing them pretty much on every corner of Azeroth, they are super rare, like really rare, like hand-picked elite order rare. In fact, so few demon hunters actually managed to survive the ritual to even become one in the first place, and they're
That's true.
so hardcore, they actually ripped out their own eyes voluntarily.
Yeah.
The reason demon
Look,
hunter
I'll give Demon Hunters a lot of credit. They are badass. Their backstory's badass. Everything about them is very cool. But how are you going to put Demon Hunters above Death Knights when we had the most epic Demon Hunter there will ever be against the most epic Death Knight there will ever be? Arthas and Illidan fought, and Illidan won. I don't get how you can put Demon Hunters above Death Knights. That don't make any sense to me. We literally had a showdown of the two ultimate versions of that class, and one of them won. It was the freaking Death Knights. Yeah, exactly. How dare they rank
are
above
so
DKs?
powerful is because they're technically like warlocks light.
Yeah,
but they
Arthas
have
won. Did I
superhuman
misspeak?
abilities.
That's what I meant to
On
say.
top of that, they're much faster than a regular mortal. They can fly for a short distance. They got insane reflexes. Think of something like a Witcher in the Warcraft universe. They also wield these very weird weapons that no other melee class
Arthas didn't even have the Helm of Domination when he won, too. Another. Just saying.
really practice
saying.
encountering, so that creates another huge challenge for their opponents. But just think how a demon hunter can almost
Please.
instantly teleport to
He's
close
the
the
real
distance and dodge your abilities before you can even see them. Spellcasters can do decently against demon hunters, but think how they're so fast that they can essentially dodge a lot of offensive spells, and they're very hard to hit. Because of that, demon hunters
That's right, he
are
did nothing
still
wrong, too.
amongst the most powerful playable classes. Mage, the caster class, and when compared to others, this is usually the kind of school structured one, but it can be a lot more than just a killing toy. In fact, some of the strongest characters on Azeroth historically have been mages. Queen
True.
Ashara to Khadgar to Jaina to incredible feats of strength. Mages have defeated the Avatar of Sargeras, messed up Sylvanas' plague, created spells like the Mana
I
Bomb.
mean, look, I can appreciate mages. I can. They can become very powerful. They are the glass cannons of the game, essentially. Very weak, but very strong at the same time.
Now, as we're
Especially
talking averages here, the average mage
well-trained
is
mage.
on average super powerful, mainly because usually a mage is someone with a lot of training. I mean, anyone can really pick up a weapon and call himself a warrior, but a mage usually has to do a ton of
they
dedicated
study.
training, and it has to do a lot of time practicing and using the spells, making
Zara was a
them
mage,
a
yeah.
lot more elite class on average. They can wield anything from arcane to fire to frost, and they can shield themselves, they can polymorph and obliterate their targets with a single spell. They're super vulnerable in close combat, making them a target to other casters and really skilled opponents, but they still have a ton of abilities like blink or invisibility to slip into the shadows. Keep in mind, any other super dangerous caster has a base as a mage, and depending on their skill level, mages are one of the most powerful classes in the game. Shadow Priests.
True.
So this is really strange.
I can agree with the mage thing. Although as a Death Knight, I love fighting mages because you got all the anti-magic shit. But I will leave it where they are.
Back of a class that isn't as highly ranked as the other one, but it is still ridiculous that these two specs exist in one class because lore-wise they're completely separate classes and have pretty much nothing to do with each other. Shadow Priests are essentially mages that are wielding the Void, and the Void, much like the Fel, is one of the most destructive powers in the universe at the moment, and it is really ranked as the #1 destructive power as Sargeras and the Fel failed in the Burning Crusade and the Warlords are still around. This is the power
True.
of the old gods. This is the power that destroys planets. This is the Void Realm. Shadow Priests can drive their opponents crazy. They can cast very powerful offensive Void spells. They can use minions of the Void, and most importantly, they're adept at turning their opponents insane. Now, at the moment, this class is really vague, as soon
I feel like we're gonna get a lot of Shadow Priest lore going
more
forward.
Expansion of this entire system with Valyria.
Maybe in Midnight, who knows, the Midnight expansion. But there's gonna be definitely a lot of lore that has to do with Shadow Priests. I mean, they were the ones who brought Xal'atath back, right? Like that was a big thing. Xal'atath being their Legion legendary, that's and it's remained constant.
The Void
Still
Elves,
relevant.
it is much more than just a light priest wielding the shadow. We are going
In
to
terms
see
of lore,
how
they had the
deep
coolest
the power
legendary.
of the Void can really go with Valyria fighting Xal'atath, an actual Void being. However, Shadow Priests in general are very similar to Warlocks, casters that use forbidden, really dangerous, really hard to wield and master magic in order to achieve ultimate destruction. Warlock. I know what you may be thinking. I mean,
Yeah, I
really?
knew Warlock was gonna be
Warlocks,
one man.
Yet again, the most powerful class, but
I knew it.
really, the facts
Fuck 'em.
speak for themselves. Warlocks are not your regular class. A Warlock is a mage that thought, how can I sacrifice
Damn it,
every
Cadence,
single
baby lad,
part
damn
of
it.
my being to get more powerful? They quite literally
man is
destroy
a
themselves to
quadlingual
become
problem.
strong, and they're essentially treading a line constantly between insanity and peak of their power. Now, Warlocks are mainly known for their Fel magic, and you could say that, I mean, sure, demons are powerful, but if they're so powerful, why did we defeat the Legion and their most powerful beings? And you are right. However, Warlocks are not
Warlocks
picky.
are
They essentially
powerful.
wield every type of forbidden magic they can get their hands on, and they're also quite adept in using the Void as well. They may not be as Void-based.
I mean,
as
they dabble in magics that many would consider to be too dangerous. But warlocks are literally beings that are just in pursuit of power, and they don't give a shit what that means, what they have to use to get it. They will do it, no matter how dangerous. So, I mean, I give warlocks credit. They are a powerful class, and they have portals and summoning stones and things like that. So, health stones.
Shadow Priest,
Soul
for
stones.
example. However,
Very
that
useful.
really depends on the individual. A Warlock is like a Shadow Priest, a Mage and a Felcaster at the same time. They're not stuck to one cosmological force, and they're wielding the most destructive magics that we know of. The only thing is they don't use light magic, but, you know, who knows, they might even implement that if we get the bad light, the destructive light. Now, don't get me wrong,
Did
I'm
you
not
really get
saying
Midnight?
every Warlock is the strongest being out there. A really powerful warrior can definitely defeat an average Warlock. However, barely anyone can really beat an insanely powerful Warlock. I mean, just remember from the Warcraft movie how Gul'dan just drained the soul of Durotan in a second, and how Gul'dan had essentially exploded Varian Vryn in a second as well. However, it is not just
Yeah, he
destruction.
did.
They can summon demons and void beings, and just all across the board, a Warlock is the most destructive class in World of Warcraft. Don't forget to check out Raid Shadow Legends with my
yeah.
link or the QR code on the screen.
Yeah,
Thank you for
very
watching.
good.
Check out why Andrew and Really Lost the Light by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on ancient Greek colonies by Spain by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.
I agreed with a lot of these. I think this is a pretty accurate list here. Besides the fact that he put Demon Hunters ahead of Death Knights. Come on. We had that showdown. Arthas won. Come on, fix that shit. Okay.